Hey there, Viv from Art with Viv. Gonna show you how to draw strawberry cupcakes with pastels. Come on. So I start off with just a nice outline drawing of my cupcake and strawberries. And I did that with pastel pencil. I did it with a lighter one so that you could see it against the black paper. Now I'm using a multimedia type black paper. It's really not best for pastels. Pastel, it doesn't have enough tooth, but I'm just going to go ahead and try it anyway. Just go ahead and go with it. I'm using Derwent pastel pencils. And right now I'm just working on that beautiful creamy cupcake frosting, and I'm just worrying about my lights, my midtones, and my darks and where to place those. So I'm just trying to get my shadows, highlights, and midtones right first. And I'm just using a really pale pink, kind of some medium pinks, and then a really darker pink. And later on, I go ahead and I go into a more of a purpley pink. So I'm going to let you enjoy the music and watch as we paint, or as I draw this beautiful icing on this cupcake. And if you notice in the shadow areas, I'm using a really deep red, sort of a purpley red. And on those highlights, I'm using a really, really pale pink, but also a little bit of the actual white, just for a really bright highlight. I'm getting in all of those nice shadows, coming back once I get that done with a white pastel pencil and just hitting some of the highlights on the edges of those swirls of frosting. And then we are going to jump into the cupcake top, that brown cakey top, and I'm just going to use some ochres and some siennas and umbers to do that cupcake top, the cake part now, not the icing. You know, the icing's all pinks and maroons and deep reds. So I'm throwing my pencils down here, and we are going to get started. I have my phone there because that's my reference photo that I'm going off of. And I'm just going to go ahead and put in a nice sort of reddish brown sienna color right under that cupcake frosting, just across the top of the cupcake. A little bit lighter, more of a yellow ochre now on the edges where it's a lot lighter, where the light's getting to it. And I'm sort of doing a scumbling technique with that, just sort of making all kinds of squiggly marks. Then right underneath I'm taking a burnt umber, a darker umber, and I put the shadow in. I came back with a few more highlights. And now I'm taking a really light pale yellowish brown and just doing some really pale marks in there. You're really just trying to get the texture of that cupcake. And it's really starting to show some form and some depth. So now I'm just taking sort of a white pastel pencil and just doing the really top highlights of the cupcake liner. And then I'm just going to do the shadow work. So first thing I'm doing is putting in those little ridges with my white pastel, and then I'm going to take a darker brown in between each ridge for the shadow and get that done so that it looks like, that you can tell that there's ridges and shadows. And that's the main thing I'm going to be worrying about. And I'm also going to blend those together just a little bit. So I'm going to let you watch and see how I do it. Once I get that cupcake liner like I want it, I'm going to start on these strawberries, and I'm using reds and oranges, and I'm doing a really darker red to start off with. You want to go, usually when you work with pastels, you want to go from dark to light. So I'm using a little bit of a darker red. I'm going ahead with some yellow ochre and just coloring in those seeds on the strawberry so that I don't forget where they're at. And taking some of my white pastel pencil, going ahead and painting in those highlights. Now, when I say paint, I'm drawing, but I consider pastel painting. Some people consider it drawing, and since I am doing it with pencils, I guess I am drawing. So I'm drawing in those highlights. Now I'm adding a little bit of an orangish red in there to lighten that up just a little bit. I'm paying attention to where highlights are on my reference and the shadows are. And I'm trying to get those in accurately. And I'm just putting in a little bit more of an orangier color. It's really hard to tell against this black. I just wanted to try this black paper out. I'm going to tell you though, it's not good for pastels. So I'm not using mixed media for pastels unless it has a tooth again. This has no tooth. It's very smooth, so it's not the best for pastels. Now I'm coming back into those highlights with some pinks and just really building up the different layers of colors, going from darker to lighter, blending in the white that I first put in, now coming back with a little bit more of the white just to brighten that up. white will overtake your pastels if you let it, so you have to kind of be careful. If you use too much white, you won't get a dark enough shadow because the white dilutes it a lot. So just be careful when you're using white. Make sure that you start from dark and go work light, and try to get in those shadows and highlights where you see them on your reference. And I'm just going around and putting some darker shadows around those seeds to sort of help them recede into the berry so that it doesn't look like they're just sitting on top of the berry. And I'm blending with a nice red pastel. Getting my greens out and just working on those leaves that are on top of it, and adding some lights and darks there. And then we're going to just continue working on strawberries just like we did that one, and I'm going to let you enjoy the music and watch. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to brighten up some highlights, work on those leaves a little bit, and just get in the very last few highlights. I think it's pretty finished. It looks like a delicious strawberry cupcake with delicious strawberries. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel. And most of all, share it with someone that loves art as much as we do. Thanks.